too long of a week. Alrighty, welcome to the Brand Doctor Show. Bienvenidos. Last time I had said that, and for some reason Riverside cut that out, so I wanted to say it again to all my Spanish speakers out there. Now, Doc, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you feeling today? I love the shirt. I love everything going on. What, you got a necklace? What do we have here?
Got
What's
everything.
the ensemble?
I just wanted to dress up for work today, and I decided, especially since this shirt, can
Makes you look good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Feeling good, looking good. Sounds good.
I've been trying to get some stuff done at work, and I managed to rearrange a whole bunch of stuff. I often follow under the mindset of ask for forgiveness rather than permission. So I started moving a lot of stuff around and rearranging things because it was disorganized, and my brain can't handle dysfunction like that.
I love it. I love it. How did everyone else take that spontaneous organization?
They either don't care or they'll notice it later next time when I'm not there. So
I like it. If you're feeling good with it, you got to do what's comfortable for you, man.
Well, and as you know, I like to rearrange things a lot as it is. I remember one of our first episodes on this series, I ended up telling you too, like I've rearranged this space like 60 times. And even over the last few weeks, I've been adding more and more to the background here. This looks crooked, but I think it's because my desk is actually not, well.
Don't start moving things now.
It also might be crooked too. I don't know, but I don't have a leveler.
No, it's great. It's great. What is the topic for today? What are we talking about today?
I think for one thing I was struggling with, and I'm kind of curious what your opinion is, because as a polymetric person yourself, you understand the mindset of having to do many different things in life, but you've also been pretty niche with your content. And so you've been rather focused with it. I mean, sure, you've evolved over the time, and every content creator, whether you're a polymathic or specialist kind of creator, generally experiments and changes things up. But I think compared to me, you've been a lot more focused and nuanced on one or two different things, whereas I'd like to jump around a little bit, but I've tried to do a good job at like branding it separately, like Poly Tools instead of PolyInnovator, the Polymath Toolkit, if you will. Mm-hmm. And something I've been struggling with, even since before I made the PolyTools website, was should I put it as a subdomain or sub portion of my main site, or should I make it into a new site? And due to the limitations of technology, being like, okay, what kind of content management system could I use to host all these tools? Or could I use Notion or something like that to make some sort of interesting feature? And I ended up going with Ghost. But transferring things from the no-code DB or Airtable, which is what I had it before, into Ghost is a very manual process. And I've looked into the automations and they don't really work with the images. And so I still have to go in there and fix the images and fix the links a little bit. It's just quicker for me to just do it myself rather than use an automation. Mm-hmm. And so I've been struggling with this idea the last few days, last couple of weeks even, if I should dismantle my PolyTools site and find a way to embed it into my main site. Because I like having all my newsletters in one place. When I moved the gaming newsletter over, I really like that. I'm going to stop talking now, but I like consolidation.
Okay. So it kind of just depends on, I always look at it, is it worth it for you personally? And then also, is it worth it to your audience, the traffic, all of those things? If you want to do it and you have the bandwidth and you just want to do it over time, I love consolidation. Makes a lot of sense to me. I also want to balance it out. Sometimes I have a tendency that I think that it's going to make a huge difference, but until I look at the analytics, like, are people saying this, or, what are we looking at here? Then I can make a decision. But if you have the time and you just feel better and it makes you feel better and like lighter, I'm like, go ahead and do it. I just know that you're doing a lot of things. And so I don't want that to weigh you down of just another thing that you have to do. So that's the only thing.
That's kind of why I wanted to consolidate, is so that it wouldn't weigh me down as much. Because when I had the gaming site as a separate site, or gaming brand or whatever, I had a separate arm to kind of keep track of. Whereas when it's on my main site, it's all in one place. I can make sure I have things scheduled. It's not context switching by switching tools. At least with PolyTools, it's both Ghost, but they're on two separate Ghost instances. And the thing is, 40 out of 50 of the blog posts were already on my PolyInnovator site anyways. I had moved them over. And so it's not like I'm moving that many posts over. It'd more or less be trying to find a new host in general. Because if I was going to get a new host, I was going to have to get a new host for both of my sites. And I'd rather just get a new host for one of them and also save the money of hosting for the second site. So I don't have enough data to know whether or not it's affecting my audience. I know that people like you will go to my site and be like, wow, this is amazing. There's a lot of cool tools, blah, 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 blah. But I only have a handful of people who've told me that. I don't have a whole bunch of people telling me yes or no. I don't have the data for that.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
personally, the expenses is kind of, coming out of pocket. It's been harder.
then I would probably consolidate. I mean, if you're if it's a pricing thing, I'm always like, hey, you got to make this work long term. The other thing is, I mean, I look at, okay, who has a directory or has a lot of volume. It would be different than like future tools, right? So with Matt Wolf and everything, then he's got to think about what he wants to do. But I'm not sure if you know this. What was
He was getting
his?
kind of burned out with his content, I think,
You
too.
saw that too, yeah. And about, the format, he feels kind of stale and all those things. Like, I think being creators and just creating things in general, it takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And there's so many different factors. I want to say I've got to check what I'm not sure if we talked about this. I was on his old show when he had a
Mm.
co-host. It's something Paradise, where it was a totally different niche, all of those things. And then he created Future Tools. And when he branched out with Matt Wolf, his own personal brand, at the beginning of like, what was it, 21, something like that, when Dolly first came out, you know, he just basically just started it new, and that's it. So I might be too radical. I'm a huge fan of just like, what can you do that makes you feel comfortable to produce content in a way that works for you? Just do that. Whatever the oldest domain, I usually hold on to it. The rest, I make subdomains, but I just got to do something that works, because if I don't feel good publishing content that is easy for me to do, I just won't do it. And so, yeah, that's what I would think about doing. And I would even do a time bound. Like, can you do something in like 7 days? What would it take for you to move everything over in 7 days? Something like that. Is that feasible? Those are kind of the factors I would look at.
Because you do get kind of eccentric with those time bound stuff, and I like that. And the interesting thing is too, Doc, part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this today is that I think a lot of people might also, feel that way with a lot of their content, where it's like, hey, I have two different topics, and technically on YouTube, it's still pretty wise to keep it separate, and so I'm going to keep the YouTube channel separate. But when it comes to SEO and blogging, I had this argument with somebody on Reddit the other day, but SEO is dead for the most part. Like it's going to keep working, but if you try to search for something, you're going to be at the bottom of the page, let alone page two.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you need to like optimize more for AI, which is essentially just writing good posts, writing well formatted posts, and doing enough of them, basically. And so really it's a matter of quality rather than trying to optimize for SEO, which is why I kind of made PolyTools, the newsletter, over onto the new site so I could use the SEO to build the traffic for the tool site. But I also don't know if I really need a tool site at this point. I was wondering maybe, so I have 30 categories, which is what makes it kind of confusing. And before we move on, I just wanted to mention that I almost thought about making a page for every category, because I don't want to
Mm.
make tags that would clutter up my tags on my site. But if I were to make pages for each category and then make a database, a Notion, or something like that, that I could then separate into different views and then just share that one view on that page.
Yeah, it's possible. If the traffic is lower, don't overthink it and just do whatever works for you. And that's it. I wouldn't really overthink it. To your point, you were saying, I don't think we talked about this. I just looked at my analytics maybe last week. Most of my YouTube channel is search. It's like 56%. Percent it's external. And for a while, I was like, oh, it's this one, like I just don't pay attention to external. Well, I looked at it, and you have to do a couple more clicks. I didn't know a lot of the external was coming from ChatGPT,
Mm.
which is just fascinating to me. I heard another channel was saying someone found them because it's a service-based business for automation. They found them on YouTube, but they found it because they said ChatGPT recommended them.
Hmm.
And I was like, that's weird. Like, I've never heard that. And I looked at my search, and external, the highest one was ChatGPT, which is to your point, you were saying SEO is dead. A lot of things are changing very quickly. I think either search or suggestions on AI, or hyper focused niche communities like in subreddits or Facebook groups, I think are going to be like the two paths. Like,
Mm.
it's going to be super viral if it's going to be like a community shared something, or it's just going to be like what I do. I don't search things anymore. I'm just on Chat or I'm on Perplexity, and that's it. I don't even go on Google.
Yeah. Well, and the one thing is too, when it comes to, I was always trying to get you to do shorts, for example, because a lot of the kids nowadays, like Gen Z especially, although they're getting, into the adult world, a lot of these Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they search through TikTok. And if you're not on there, then you kind of don't exist to them. And that's kind of like one reason why I always tell people to like cross post. Even if you're mainly a YouTuber, just use like Nuelink to cross post over to TikTok and set it and forget it. Like that's kind of what I did with Pinterest. It's like I don't suggest doing setting and forgetting for most things, but if you can be arsed to do something and you still think you should do it, and I think you should still do like TikTok or Pinterest, something like that, then do what you can and just repurpose what you have too.
And this is the thing. I would love your thoughts on this coming up. I'm not promising anything. I might delve into TikTok for the first time. I have my reservations. We can go through that in a little bit. But
I have my reservations now too, by the way.
Really? Are you still on the other site?
Nope.
Yeah. How's it
Not
going?
active, but I kind of feel bad for a lot of the people on there because they were like excited these new users came on, and at least half the users probably went back to TikTok when it was back.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just keep going back and forth, but YouTube, and we can have this whole conversation later on, or maybe a different episode. But YouTube, man, it's just something when you can create long form, and if you can have an audience, doesn't matter if it's 10 people, 100, whatever it is, if they get to know you on long form content, it's a game changer for your brand, for what people know about you, all of those things. So I just keep going back to the more time I spend on YouTube, it's rewarding. And then also too, I forgot to tell you, I just got the notification. I guess I got invited to the creators community program or something, but I don't know until the end of April if I get accepted or not. You got to wait a while, but we'll see what happens. Well, it's just YouTube, all the different paths with podcasting. I think you saw the report too. I just keep I keep buying up more real estate on YouTube to make it happen, to then go to my own site like you're doing. You've got to have your own land. But
definitely have to have your own land. That should be an episode in of itself, talking about ownership like that, like email and website. But when it comes to short form content, though, I think a lot of YouTubers, even still now, they just see it as some sort of gimmick or some sort of extra thing, when in reality, it's another arm. And there was a time, especially before the user interface got updated on YouTube, where YouTubers thought it was clutter. They thought short form content was cluttering their channel, which I don't think could be farther from the case. I think it was one of those things where, yes, visually it was kind of cluttering up the videos feed, but it really wasn't that big of a deal. And if you did a good enough job with playlists, you would have been fine. And I knew that YouTube at some point would make some sort of shorts tab like they have now, or some sort of way of making it more, actually usable. But the same thing happened with like TikTok. And it's weird considering like your apprehension with TikTok. There's a lot of people who still see it kind of as like the dancing app or the silly app, when to me, I just see it as a video app. I don't see the niche per se, because when I go on there, I don't see any dancing really. And I see comedy a lot because I interact with comedians, but like if you use it enough, the algorithm will figure your stuff out and stuff like that. But even when it was still Musically, I saw the reason why people saw it as like this Play Kids app. But I definitely saw what Gary Vee was talking about when it came to just like the potential of that platform and being like, hey, this is a new vertical space, and the evolution of content is going to change from this. And I'm curious what the next evolution is going to be, but I digress.
No, that's awesome. No, it's a lot of, and I think there's enough room for multiple approaches. I would love, where do you want me to go with this? Because I've got some things I want to talk about with TikTok and what I've seen, and but I don't want to go too derailed. Where do you want the theme to be for this?
It's not really what I want per se. I think we just follow the flow on that. I think really too with TikTok, I'm feeling a little bit towards like it's the end of the line. I don't know if it's necessarily because I've been on there since Musically and I have this perspective, or if it's because I saw Vine, disintegrate essentially.
Yeah.
And I was active on Vine. I wasn't necessarily making a whole lot of videos, but I made videos and I was really active as a viewer too. And then I saw the platform die out. Same thing happened with IGTV. And so I've been around the bush now for a while when it comes to, I was like one of the first people on Snapchat back in the day too. Like I've been first on, not first, at least second or first on so many different social media platforms, and I've seen certain patterns, and I don't know if I'm just, talking out of my arse right now, or if it's a pattern recognition that I'm trying to identify or articulate, trying to figure out, is it like real, is it not, basically, right? But it feels like TikTok, I don't think they're going to sell. And even if they do sell, it's not going to be the same. Ever since the ban, it hasn't been the same, Doc. And it was one of those, I think I sent you a meme about it at one point, but it's like Uncanny Valley, where it's like Avatar: The Last Airbender, where like there's no war in Ba Sing Se. And that's what it felt like when you went on the app, and it felt like you had that Uncanny Valley. And it was very surreal to be like such a power user of the app and then have this feeling of like, this isn't my home. This is not, like, this is new to me. And I think that now that the evolution of the app is changing, that might change its longevity or viability.
Yeah, I like that. I think a lot of these platforms, I almost feel like when you're on these social media platforms, it's almost like following a band that you really like. If you are with a band that just gets started, you always reminisce like, oh, it's not like their first album, it's not like their second, and you hate bandwagon fans. At least that's me. And I think when you hit a certain apex of a platform, they're going to make features, they're going to change, and it's just not going to feel like the same because they are making features and making changes to grow their audience, and they have to change because they're to stay with who they want to be. They can't keep doing the same thing. And I think that's a good thing, and I think that's a bad thing. And I think that's why having multiple, at least 2 different platforms that you can pivot or try out, it's going to be perfect, because I don't enjoy the experience on Instagram. I mean,
which is funny because I'm opposite. I love the experience on Instagram. In fact, it's my favorite, despite the fact that I hate Meta.
That's hilarious. And so to me, and this is for me, it's
I hate
YouTube
Twitter
and
actually
Twitter.
now at this point.
So it is.
Twitter has gone downhill,
and that's the thing. So no, but it's true. But I'm only in 2 main groups. I'm in NBA Twitter and I'm in vibe coding. Very specific niche, very weird. You know what I'm saying? And I just mute everything else. In fact, if people see like how I use Twitter, it's very.
Do you want to know mine?
Not just using Blue Sky instead.
No. But on Twitter, I'm on indie game dev, Pokemon ROM hacks, and like spriting. And then what's my other niche? I guess technically like the PKM, Notion, Obsidian space. But literally, like, it's those 2 things, like indie game dev and knowledge management. That's it, basically.
And I think if you use something like that, for me, maybe I'm just too addicted to Twitter. I love how fast Twitter is, where I can see, it feels
no judgment, I'm just laughing with you.
I'm sorry, but it feels like you're in the future when there's trends. Because on LinkedIn feels like it's 2 or 3 weeks behind all of these things. I'll give you an example. I'm going to give you 2 examples. With Cursor and everything with IDs and going on with like AI, back in like August, September, Cursor, we're talking about all this stuff, and it almost took until the end of the year for every other platform to jump on AI agents. I was like, I'm seeing this in August. Same thing with Dolly, all those things. I remember
using Dolly when it was new, and then like all the other image generation tools came out.
Yeah, it's just wild. And to me, I love that.
Like that happened with Opus. Like all these other tools came out of the woodwork once Opus came out.
And they can copy it like that. And the other one is real time. I will say 2 things. I'm going to say a negative example, and then I'm going to say positive. This happened probably, I think, New Year's Day. And I think someone blew up like a Cybertruck in front of a hotel. And
was it like a Molotov?
Yeah, it was something. And the guy was inside and blew up. And it happened so quick on Twitter. I was like, no one else is talking about this. I'm like, it can't be real. It can't be real. Did something else like 5 hours later, then all of these things. I was like, there's no way. And I was telling this to my wife, and I was like, oh, I think something happened. She's like, there's no outlet. And I don't like to promote things if I can't have an official outlet that says something. But like Twitter is so fast. If anyone sees the Arab Springs, like that happened because of all the things that can happen in real time. One last thing.
You're fine.
Luka Doncic got traded with from the Mavs, and like NBA Twitter just lost it. Yeah. But it happens so fast I think because it's such short form content, it's not a lot of effort that you have to do on Twitter. There's all of those things. I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying it's good for the mind, but that's
Sure.
why I
Yeah.
like the cycle. Yeah.
I had to bite my tongue earlier because I didn't want to interject because I know you were about to say something important. What's funny about what you said, Doc, about Twitter being quick, I feel like Twitter has aged to the point where it's not as quick as it used to be, especially now that Elon took over. It has been, I think a lot of people have left the platform, so people who were giving out the news have moved on. But it's still one of the fastest places, definitely a hell of a lot faster than LinkedIn and Facebook and even YouTube in some cases. Where I would put a line in the sand is actually TikTok is faster.
Mm.
And that was one reason why I liked TikTok so much, is that when there was some news thing happening, like Gaza, for example, when it first started having issues. And on top of that, like I would see stuff about the war in Ukraine. I would see stuff about like different news around the country. And TikTok was always the first to the scene. And even before Twitter in a lot of my cases. And I would use both pretty regularly and I would go on both. And TikTok was always just fast. Like I think the only thing that really compared to TikTok was Reddit, because Reddit's one of the fastest places. If it gets in the front page, it blows up. And like 4chan's probably up there somewhere as like the fastest. But I don't use 4chan.
I don't like that place.
Yeah, but I feel like it's like 4chan, Reddit, and TikTok, and then Twitter when it comes to speed. And that's what I've seen from my experience. I think that TikTok is now getting old enough now to where it's starting to slow down like Twitter has, but they're still both pretty fast.
Great. How have you seen the difference with TikTok coming back? Is it fast still or not really?
I think that it's skewed. I think it's still fast, but I think what we're getting news on is skewed. Facebook or any kind of Facebook meta platform, including Instagram, I think, and TikTok have had some censorship issues. And so I keep seeing a lot of weird sub trends or things that I can't prove that are happening, but I keep seeing it happen with people keep making videos and green screening the videos and talking about it, where they're like automatically followed the president, right? Even if they didn't follow them before. Or they followed AOC, and now they're unfollowed AOC, even though they had followed before. And so like the platform is like changing who they're a lot like paying attention to. Or they'll say they don't want to see something, like to say not interested, and yet the thing keeps popping up anyways. Whereas before the not interested was actually pretty good feature on TikTok. And so there's a lot of weird things going on where I think it's like, okay, it's starting to skew a lot more political. And it's weird
Yeah.
because I, like you, would block a lot of the political stuff, at least on Twitter and Reddit platforms. On TikTok, can't really block a lot of them. But
Yeah. I think first of all, have you done a masterclass talking about your perspective, how you should use TikTok? Have you ever done that for your content?
I don't think it's worth it anymore. If it was a year or two ago, I probably would. I definitely think that, ironically, I'm more agnostic than I think I let on. As much as I love TikTok as a user, as a creator, it's my biggest platform. I have 3,700 followers on there,
Mm.
right? More
Hmm.
than all my other platforms combined, right? However, I've been on there for like 7 or 8 years, and it's like, yet I have not grown as much as I probably should. And I don't know if it's a lack of effort. I don't know if it's a lack of consistency or if it's a lack of interest in my niche on that platform. I don't know. But I do know that we were talking about this earlier. Like, you care more about long form than anything. And I like using Opus and using tools like that to like repurpose my stuff. And even though I might like a clip, my audience may not like that clip as much. And I'm not super picky about it. I'd rather go for 80% value, but go for that quantity of it instead of finding that perfect 90, 100%. Right.
Yeah.
And so I put out a ton of clips. And my point is, Doc, I put them out across Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and sort of now on Blue Sky and Facebook, now that Blue Sky has a TikTok feed. And by doing that, and Pinterest too, I put it on Pinterest. By doing that though, Doc, I was able to get a ton of followers and views and progress, despite the fact not all my clips got the greatest engagement. The clips themselves were kind of like sacrificed cattle. But because of that, I was able to get a lot more attention on my actual important stuff. That's why I was kind of more agnostic about it.
It's interesting. That's interesting.
I feel like a general in war, like the front lines die so that the soldiers in the back can succeed.
Yeah, I mean, it's two things that I hear what you're saying. I think it's because, first of all, depending on the industry, depending on the niche, I think the strategies are going to be able to be very focused. I think that when you're hearing things from like 1 of 10, vidIQ, they're great because it's surface level, but there's so many deep down niches that I'm like, short form or this thing could work over this one. And I also think the purpose of what your channel or your perfect, like your demographic can serve different purposes. Like for like you were saying about short form, my general audience, I've seen it over and over again. And I think this is just based on volume and everything. More than 95% of my shorts die at like 500 views. Like I can show you every single time. I go over and over again. I keep dying at like 500 views.
But that's how shorts do.
It irritates me to know it. But to your point, there's this thing. There's a guy that it's a friend of mine. We're trying to do this project. And first of all, he mentioned, he's like, oh, I saw your AJ Vaynerchuk interview. And I was like, oh yeah? I was like, I haven't put out the full thing. He's like, he saw a short. Now this is the thing. First of all, he never watches my channel, ever watches my channel. I put out a short of Vayner.
I saw that short too.
So that one picked up. And then on Twitter, I put out the whole interview before I drop it on YouTube. The thing that I've learned is, and this is what I wanted to do, and I was experimenting with it, I know that long form content won't do great number wise, but the authority that I'll be able to gain from having and showing the association, I knew it was going to work. So there's many ways of like, just because it doesn't succeed on views doesn't mean it's not influential for your channel and everything. Because on Twitter, I had one guy reach out, a bigger YouTuber. He's like, oh, how did you get that interview with like AJ? And I was like, that's pretty interesting. He never talks about my content at all. And then the other guy, he never watches my YouTube channel at all. And he's like, oh, I saw that you interviewed AJ. Now that clip, that interview is about 5 years old. I just decided to repackage it and put it out. So to your point, short form can work. I just think you've got to be intentional. You've got to be realistic and understand all the different perspectives of what shorts and videos can do for your brand.
And one thing I wanted to mention to you too, Doc, and maybe this is why we've had difference of opinion when it comes to shorts, because I saw it this way and you didn't see it that way. But every time I made an interview, right, let's say 50, 60 minutes, I would get at least 12 clips, 10 clips from that interview. Let's say 10. And if that video got 5,000 views, which I'm talking for your channel, not mine, obviously. And so 5,000 views is a lot for one of my videos. But if I got like 5,000 views on average for my long form video, and I shared 10 clips, and each clip got 500 views, well, you're still equaling out 5,000 views. And that's where you kind of change. Like, people keep comparing one short to one video when they're not equal. It's 10 shorts for one video. And once you put that in perspective there, it allows you to understand, like, hey, like, this is adding up at least.
Yeah. And you know what, and I would love your perspective on this later on. I think I want to now see what shorts work, maybe do a higher quality, ones that I think can be, either used for motivation, or a high quality short that I could use later on.
The only high quality I see is like Dan Coe, where he just went super hard into just like making animations and just trying to make a very high quality short. And then I'm kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, where I just repurposed. I didn't really make any shorts by hand anymore. Yeah. I just, even for my clips for gaming channel, I repurposed from my actual like videos and whatnot.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Yeah, I think again, and I don't think we talked about
that's which way. Yeah.
Was it Taj or Taja?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do a full breakdown of. I'm doing like 5 different versions of using Opus against all those. Taja is performing the best, which is surprising to me, because some of the clips, like, I'm like, I'll load them. I don't really think this is a great clip. It's just surprising what some people like and what people don't. Yeah.
One thing I should mention to you too, Doc, I want to get back into the consolidation topic we started off with, like a circular ending for the ending of the episode. One thing I wanted to mention to you is that like Riverside and Opus clip both are kind of moving towards this. You upload your video, if you didn't record it in Riverside, you upload your video to it, and then you edit it within there, and it'll cut out all the pauses. It'll cut out all the, in Opus clip, you can actually cut out all the swear words. And Riverside, you can kind of do a little bit more fine tuning on the silences or the pauses. And then both of them allow you to, they have like stock B-roll, although Riverside's completely manual at this point. Opus Clip has automatic B-roll and AI generated B-roll. But both of them have interesting like speech enhancement. In my opinion, Riverside does it better than Opus. And I've told Opus this, like they need to improve this. Because I've used Opus Clip's speech enhancement and didn't really do anything for my videos. I don't know if it's my video itself or whatever.
What does
Riverside,
speech enhancement mean?
that's kind of where I'm like, I don't know for sure because neither one of them are really descriptive on that, but it's presumably normalization, EQing, and highlighting the vocal range, like vocal isolation kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think maybe Opus is more about like normalization, perhaps, whereas Riverside is a lot more EQing and isolation. And so when I had issues with like my audio in one of my videos, I dropped it into Riverside and it was able to fix the leveling issues, whereas Opus wasn't able to. But that was also pretty early on with the feature. So I don't know. But I made a comparison video recently of the two, and it's just one of those things where I don't want to edit. I don't want to pay for Glean or Firecut and all these fancy AI editors because they're not really doing anything that these two tools that I have access to don't already do in some way for the most part. Maybe like multicam or cutting out repeated lines like that. If I said the same thing twice, it'll cut it out. But besides that, like Glean won't really replace Opus in my opinion, or Riverside even for that matter.
What do you think about these platforms? I feel like they're dipping their toes into the opposite one. Like,
Riverside.
Yeah, what do you think about
Yeah,
these things?
I like when tools do that. I've only seen one tool be too widespread and fail, and that was Podcastle. Because they didn't refine their features, I had so many freaking issues with Podcastle. And I love the team, and I love the idea that the tool was trying to accomplish. Man, some of the features were just so broken. And then when they updated the editor, it was so worse off than better. And I really wanted Podcastle to compete with Riverside, to be honest. I was really rooting for them. But the script was like the first one on the market when it came to like text-based editing. And now all the tools are doing that. Podcastle, Riverside, Opus Clip, all of them are doing that. And I think that the script has probably a lead in some ways, but Riverside had the lead when it came to video recording. Opus Clip has a lead when it comes to making clips. And now with their fancy model, even better in all the other tools. So it's just interesting to think about. The way I'll say this, Doc, is that a lot of these tools, they do too much. And people say the jack of all trades, master of none, half quote, right? And you and I have talked about this quote a number of times. But the quote continues, but oftentimes better than the master of one. And so I hate when people say these tools are becoming a jack of all trades and not mastering any of them. Because a lot of the time, the tools would have mastered one thing already, like recording or clipping or something like that, and then they spread out. And I think that that's what these tools are doing. Opus Clip is getting better about refining before moving on to the next feature. Riverside is getting more stable, I guess is the best compliment I can give right now. And besides that, like I think that these tools need to diversify because otherwise the other tools will, and people will move to them.
I like it. I think to me, I see no reason to not advance or try.
Yeah.
The only thing that I have trouble with is when they overpromise in their marketing.
Yeah.
And then that's where I have a problem with them. I understand everyone needs to be selling and all those things, but I don't like, wait a minute, like an all-in-one this. I'm like,
You know what tool I have kind of not beef, but just like an issue with when it comes to not so much the marketing, but so much of their just interface. Like they have cool features, but they have such a terrible way of interacting with it. Eclipse.gg. They started out as kind of a competitor to like Combo or CrossClip as a gaming clipping tool. But their interface is so god awful that you can't even access half the features without going through 10 different menus. And they have one of the best, I think, from the limited experience I had with it, they had one of the best automatic gaming clip editing. It gives you memes, it gives you captions, it gives you like different transitions. It did all of that for me, right? But in order to use that feature, you had to go through like 10 different steps, and it took like 5 to 10 minutes to process one clip. And it was just like the user interface and user experience made it so bad that I couldn't use the tool.
I'm looking at it. First of all, Eclipse You've got to love SaaS
with
companies.
EK.
Yeah, thanks. I was like, let me spell it the right way, but I'm like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Very interesting. Very interesting.
I will say, like, and the thing is too, I kept telling the Opus Clip team about this tool because they kept trying to like go from gaming to podcast clips, and I'm like, oh, you got to look out for this team because now they're doing both. Because Opus Clip had been wanting to do both for a while, like they mastered podcasting clips, but they also wanted to do gaming clips. And I still think, and I told the team this many times, Opus can do quite well with gaming clips, but there's still a lot of issues with the reframing sometimes unless you manually fix it. And I know they're working on it, and I know they're adding more and more Twitch streamers to the pool to help test things out. But it's like other tools are doing both. Got to move a little bit faster, which is ironic because then I usually say that Opus needs to slow down. It's just funny. I love the team. I love what they're doing, and I think that gaming in general is still an underserved niche when it comes to tools. And I have a number of them on PolyTools website, like different highlighting and clipping tools.
Very interesting. Okay. So what are we going to talk about next week?
Why don't we wrap up and then we talk about next week?
Ooh, okay. Let's do it.
So I still kind of want to circle back to that consolidation topic because the reason why I brought it up is that I don't want to make the mistake of cutting that arm short. Like the gaming arm was still, trademarked as PolyInnovator Gaming, right? It was gaming part of PolyInnovator, like PolyInnovator YouTube. Whereas like PolyTools was its own kind of thing. And I also know the complexity of having a tools website makes it to where having it built into my main site doesn't really work out as well. And I think that the topic of consolidation versus separating your sub brands is important for certain creators to understand, especially if they're multi-potentialite type of creators.
Okay. Okay. I like that. I like that. So what are you going to do? What are you focused on doing in the next week or 10 days?
I really need to get off my butt and make a review on this mini PC and external graphics card. Also, I want to show this to you. I finally got this in the mail. Did you see my video on this?
I did see that. I don't
know if you watched it or not, but this is a smart assistant, right? Voice assistant that's open source. So I don't like Alexa, just never liked it, right? And I love Google Assistant, but I also don't like how Google Assistant needs to be on the internet. I've had times where I wanted to listen to my Spotify through my phone, could not do it despite the fact it's all right there. And Google Assistant also, sends all your data to Google and it listens. And I've had people tell me they had a Google Assistant in their house. They said something out loud, not even using any wake word, and then they'll get an ad for it like 2 days later, which is scary. Like, I'm not super privacy centric. I'm not super tinfoil hat, but I know Google does this crap. And it's like, I don't trust Google enough to do that kind of thing. Plus, I really wanted to create something kind of interesting with this. Combine this with a mini PC that has Zorin OS built into it, and then have Home Assistant built into it with Obsidian and create my own little Jarvis. That's kind of the goal.
I like it. I'm looking forward to that. And there's this YouTuber that I've seen. I have to see what it's called, but I keep seeing him randomly. He remade the Toy Story 2 game in Unreal, and it's his journey across it. And as you keep talking about your own Jarvis, I think if you made a series about your journey to creating your own Jarvis, I would be interested to see that playlist and how well it does, especially with Marvel coming out with so many new series still. I
was watching Daredevil earlier.
I think you could do a lot of tie-ins of that. So that's just a thought, but interested.
Before we wrap up, what did you think of that new Spider-Man show?
I am going to. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen it. Don't start.
Doug, and you call yourself a Marvel fan, my dude. Come on. I watched the entire series in 2 nights.
I heard it already got greenlit for season 2 they were talking about.
I was kind of pleasantly surprised considering the first 2 episodes, my roommate tried watching it with me. He's like, I don't like this. It's boring. And I'm like, just wait. I watched the rest of it by myself, and it ended up being one of those things where I was like, oh, they went this way. Interesting. And a lot of Easter eggs galore, if you will.
Yeah. No, that 97 are on my list too. I'm going to be binge watching that. There's another documentary series I'm watching right now, Severance. Don't tell me anything about it. I am doing that right now, but it is on my list and to be continued. Hopefully in the next
Yeah.
couple of weeks, I'll be done.
Fair enough. Anything else, sir?
No, I think this is great. I have some thoughts on formats of the show coming up, but overall, love it. And
Sounds
I'll see
good.
you next week.
See ya.